All right. Um, it is 6 o'clock, and thank you for being here. I'm Matt Landau, Superintendent of the Beacon City School District. I have Anne Marie Corderoni, our Deputy Superintendent and Business Official, joining us tonight, and we are going to go through a presentation on the budget, and so there is. This is a webinar, so it's not a normal Zoom. So there is a Q&A button. If you have questions throughout, you do that, and we'll keep our eyes on the questions. And if it's a question that we can answer, we will answer it, and we'll do that sort of throughout. It doesn't have to wait till the end. And if it's a question that we can't answer, if you could email us, and we'll then do our best to follow up on that question. But Mike, if you could put the slides up. We may go through the slides. I don't want to say quickly, but we're going to go through them pretty briskly. And there's longer versions of this presentation on the website at our different board meetings, so feel free to check those out. We're going to go through these pretty quickly. And then, like I said, at any point, if you want to ask questions, just click the Q&A button and submit a question, and we'll do our best to answer it. All right, let's go to the next slide. So this budget that we've been developing represents our values as a district. And so I'm not going to read everything on this slide, but there's four main pillars or portions of what we do: academic excellence, communication and community outreach, culture of care, and facilities and fiscal sustainability. And so a lot of those things underneath have been ongoing, but some of those things are new in the budget, and we'll get into a little bit more detail with that as we go. Next slide, please. All right, so this is just a kind of a cool graphic about things that we have been adding to the budget over the year that have really gone towards creating a better student experience for our students here. So several years ago, again, I'm not going to go in minute detail on everything here, but we started a class size reduction initiative at the elementary level by adding teachers to all of our schools, then we added instrumental music to the fourth grade, which has really had a phenomenal impact on our music program. We obviously had mental health providers before 2020, but since then we've been able to add 2 social workers to the high school and a guidance counselor to the middle school. We've always had clubs at the high school, but we also have added a lot of extracurriculars to elementary and middle school, which has been really it's been really cool to see. And at our elementary level, all 4 of our schools have around some over 50% of their kids are involved in some sort of after-school club at some point during the year, which has been really cool. Pre-K, we've had pre-K before 2022, but pre-K that year, 2022, we started piloting the full day program, and now all of our pre-K classes are full day. And then we've always had partnerships too. But then a couple years ago, we started piloting a partnership with Compass Arts. We also have partnerships with Common Ground Farm, Land to Learn, Clearwater, and many others. So that's just some highlights of the budget over the last few years. Next slide, please. And so some initiatives that we are moving forward with in this upcoming budget. We're doing some summer student workshops at Beacon High School. One is focused on upcoming 9th graders, trying to get them ready for the high school experience. One is for students, preparing them to take college or AP level classes who haven't done so before. So we're excited to be offering that. In this new budget, we're going to be partnering with Astor to do a site-based mental health clinic at Roundabout Middle School, and then another mental health program called the Bright Program at BHS. The Bright Program helps students transition back to school from hospital settings, and also helps with students who have some school reluctance. So both of those, I think, are are going to be really impactful at the secondary level. We're adding a half-time speech teacher due to student IEPs to help with that. We're adding some intervention teachers to the elementary level. And then we have a lot of professional development in this budget. A lot of it focused on the science of reading, but we also have, some different curricular areas that we're focusing on with our PD too. So those are some things that are in this proposed budget, for the 25-26 school year. And again, just a reminder, if you have a question, I'll be monitoring the Q&A box every few minutes. So if you have a question, you can submit it at the bottom. And if it's one we can answer tonight, we will do our best to answer it. All right, next slide. All right, Anne Marie's going to walk us through a few of the next slides.
So every year we have to calculate our tax cap, which is part of the New York state law. So some of the things that impact the tax cap every year that I found important enough to mention so people can understand it. We're allowed, in part of the calculation, it's a tax-based growth factor. And what that means is that we're allowed to increase the levy based on new construction in the district. And most people walking around can see that Beacon has a lot of new construction. So it's not a surprise that Beacon's tax-based growth factor is the highest in Dutchess County. So we are able to raise our levy by a higher percentage. The allowable growth factor is mainly where people find the 2%. You're allowed to raise the levy by either the consumer price index or 2%, whichever is lower. So obviously that would be 2% this year. And the capital exclusion, you're allowed to add back the amount of money you pay for principal and interest. And as you remember, in May of 2024, on the ballot was a vote for a $49.9 million capital project. So the capital exclusion this year will be a little bit higher than most other years because when we asked you to vote on the capital project, we mentioned that there would be a small tax increase to pay for that. So that's also included in the capital exclusion. So that all those factors go into how we calculate the tax levy for the taxpayers. Next slide, please.
So the last year voters approved the 2024 capital project, and Anne Marie and I might both talk about this slide really quickly. So that work is going to be happening over. Some of the work is starting sooner than this at the high school, but the work is primarily going to be over the 2027 and 2028. But these are some of the big highlights of the project. We're doing more secure school entrances. We did Glenham in the last project, and we'll be addressing our other schools in this one. We hope that to be one of the early things we do. We're going to be creating cooling centers in our elementary and middle schools, and we're also going to be adding air conditioning in rooms. We're hoping to get up to 50% of classrooms, possibly even more. There's a heat index law now in New York schools, and so it doesn't mean the schools have to close on a hot day, but we do have to find different ways to address it. So this will be a huge help. We're doing a lot of infrastructure improvements like roofing and HVAC and things like that. We are doing upgrades to the baseball and softball fields at BHS. We have a lot of drainage issues on both of those fields. And so we're looking at different options, like doing some better drainage in the outfields, and like turf infields is kind of the latest thinking about that. But we want something that will make those fields more playable, and also that the community can access when our students aren't using it, or community like baseball and softball organizations. And then finally, another big part of it is we're doing renovations to the Seeger Theater here at Beacon High School. We're still kind of identifying the different things we want to improve, but our theater gets used quite a bit by us in the district and also by community groups as well. So we want to take care of that. I forgot one thing. We're also resurfacing the tennis courts too. So we're talking about this because this does have, it was approved by voters last year, but it does have an impact, on us as a district and our budget over the next few years. So, Anne Marie, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. All right, next slide.
So the budget that we are putting on the ballot for May 20th is an $87,720,000. It's a budget to budget increase of 4.61%. Happily, on the other side, we did this presentation at the budget hearing on Tuesday, and we did not have a budget, but now we do. So the state aid number that we were using was right in line when we were preparing the budget with what we actually received. So that was good news. I want to say that it's passed, because historically, this has been pretty late for us. It's been a challenge for some of the districts, but now we can kind of move forward from that. So that's good.
And one thing I want to add that isn't so much budget related, but a pretty major or a very major bill was passed with the budget regarding schools, and that is a bell-to-bell cell phone ban. So we got the language of the law. I got it this morning. So we've been obviously preparing for this because they've been super open about this is where they're going. As many know, we've had, I think, very successfully implemented like a strict classroom ban on cell phones. And so now this is going to take, this state law is going to take it from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. I'm not going to get into a great deal about it tonight, but I will do some sort of brief update to the community in my email probably this weekend. And then we'll just be really updating folks as we go through this. But just to be clear with this, students will have to store away in a storage device their internet capable devices, cell phones, Apple Watches, all that kind of stuff for the entirety of the school day. So I just want to add that. So there is some money in the state budget for districts that choose that, have to use funds to get the storage devices. Yonder pouches are one of them. We're looking to see what options we have. So there is some state money available, and we're looking into the details of how to access that. So I just want to take a moment to talk about that because it will be another big shift for us, and I think can really help. So, all right, next slide.
So this slide shows the revenue side of our budget, how much we receive in local property taxes. That's the tax levy, and the tax levy is at the cap. That's our state aid number. It's a couple $1,000s different. So I will update the slide based on what the governor's run said late last night. And then interest earnings, use of reserves and fund balance, payment in lieu of taxes, and other miscellaneous revenue totaling the $87,720,000. Next slide, please. This is the expenditure side of the budget based into three parts. By the state, we are required to break up our line by line budget items into three areas: the administrative, the instructional, and the capital. The administrative is what you would imagine it to be. It's everyone in central office, building level principals, everyone that helps run the district. Instructional, again, would be what you would imagine it would be, anything that relates to children. So teachers, teacher aides, related service staff, the bus garage are all part of instructional. Capital is the facilities and operations department, and it's also our principal and interest payments. And including in that, you'll see that there is an increase in capital, and some of that has to do with principal and interest payments going forward for our new capital project. Next slide, please. And this is a visual more on our proposed expenditures in a pie chart, just to see what percentages of the higher ticket items are part of our budget that we're proposing. Next slide, please. So understanding the tax levy, we had a lot of questions. Well, will my school taxes go up next year? So I wanted to just mention a few things. The total tax levy is the increase that we do based on the calculation. It is spread over all of the taxpayers in the Beacon City School District. If there are new properties that add to the tax roll, they share in this amount that we are levying. We do not increase the levy because there's more houses or businesses in our district. So the increase in the tax levy does not represent the increased amount of taxes that you will pay. And again, the more properties that we have on the tax rolls, the more the burden is shifted to more people. And our tax levy is at the cap, so voter approval only needs a simple majority, which is 50% plus one to pass. And in the future slides, I'll go over an estimate of what taxes will look like going forward. Next slide, please. There will be no bus proposition on the ballot this year. So we were asked some questions about, will school taxes get affected by the purchase of EV buses? So last May, we had two propositions on the ballot. One was for gas diesel buses and one was for 2 EV buses. So those 5 buses are planning to be delivered in the summer and early fall. So we decided that no bus proposition was needed for this year. So both of those propositions were approved last year. The EV buses, we did receive a New York State grant to offset the total amount of the bus purchase and the chargers that we would need. And so it kind of leaves it almost at the price of what a regular gas diesel bus would cost. And all the buses are eligible for transportation aid, and our aid ratio is 54.2%. So that helps as well.
Sorry. I was just a quick addition to this in the budget. I don't have the details in front of me, but in the state budget bill that was passed last night, you may be aware that there has been an EV bus requirement that starting in 2027, all bus purchases would have to be EV buses. That law has now been changed. I haven't poured over the details of this one quite like I did the phone restriction one, but at the very basic level, that has been extended 2 years with some caveats. So the EV bus requirement will be now, I think, 2029 for most districts. So just so you're aware of that. And I think that makes sense just in terms of giving districts more time to adjust to that switch. So anyway, next slide.
This was a question that came at the board level, and we thought it was important to talk about since there's been a lot of discussion at the federal level of the Federal Education Department. So the Beacon City School District does receive federal funds. We receive title funds and special education money, which is Section 611, 619. Those funds are used to help pay for reading teachers that are currently in the district, some academic intervention service programs, and it helps pay special education teachers' salaries. That amount of 1,384 is not part of the budget you're voting on. That's separate. The reason we felt it was important to mention it is if for some reason the federal government does not give us this money, then we would have to incorporate at least $1.3 million of things into the general fund budget. So it will affect what we're asking you to vote on and what kind of programs we have in the district right now. Next slide, please. And contingency budget. The contingency budget is something that has to be adopted if we get 2 budget votes that fail. So we are asking the voters to vote on May 20th. If for some reason we do not get a successful vote, the Board of Education would decide what things we needed to cut from the budget based on our recommendations. And we could put the budget up again in June for a second vote. And if for some reason that second vote were to fail, we would have to go to contingency. The reason we mention that is that contingency budget for this year would be pretty significant. We would have to decrease the budget that we're asking you to vote by $2.4 million, which would severely impact our program. All of the things that Matt had mentioned in a prior slide about all the great things that we've done before, we would have to look at continuing clubs and smaller class size and all of that. So I think it's important for people to know how important it is for them to vote. And also what would happen if for some reason we didn't pass the budget. Next slide, please. So just to give you some sense of where we are in Dutchess County, Beacon is more towards the bottom of it. This is the tax rate per thousand. This is how we calculate your taxes. So I always feel it's important to see how we measure against other school districts in our region. Next slide, please. And I also felt it important to show our assessments. And I know people just got their assessment bill recently in the last couple of days. So assessment increases is on your personal home, but it's also assessment increases are a result of new properties coming onto the tax roll. And we have seen a great deal of that, which is why the percentages are so high, you know, from 2021 on. So every year, once a building is complete, the assessor goes and, you know, obviously assesses the property, and it gets included into the reports. Those reports are given to the school district in July, and that's how we calculate your school tax bill that comes to you in September. But I thought it's really important. Not every school district in the area is encountering these kind of assessment increases. Next slide, please. So estimated taxes. We also like to give people an idea of what their taxes will look like. I'm using current assessment values and Basic Star. So current assessment values mean the assessments that we had last summer. So I don't have the new assessments yet. So I always look at this slide as worst case scenario. From the prior slide, you've seen the assessments increase. A lot of that increase has to do with new properties coming onto the tax roll. So our median home value definitely has increased. It's at $420,200. So the budget impact would be a yearly increase of $240 or a monthly of $20. I did a couple other scenarios just to give you if your assessed value is 400 or 500,000, what that yearly and monthly increase would be using last year's assessments. Next slide, please. I also felt it important to, after I showed you the bar chart showing the increases in assessments, I did a calculation over the last 9 years. The assessments in Beacon have increased by 7% overall. So to be conservative, I used a 5% increase. So if we are to see a 5% increase in the current year assessments that we will receive in the summer, on a median home value, your yearly increase then would only be $31 and $2.58 per month. Why is that? So, you know, it's confusing because I know everyone got an assessment and it was probably more. Some people's assessments went up 2%, some went up 5%, some went up 10%. And then you have all of these new properties that are coming on the tax roll. So all of those things and the general increase in assessment makes the tax levy be able to be spread over more people, which means the tax rate will decrease and people's taxes will not go up as much as the prior slide when I used last year's assessments. So this is just more of a visual to try to give some taxpayers a perspective of where we could be. Next slide, please. We have 3 municipalities in the Beacon City School District. So this would be Fishkill using their median home value. And again, the calculations are pretty similar to the city of Beacon. This slide shows the current assessments, the ones from last year. Next slide, please. And again, this is a slide assuming a 5% increase in assessed values. Again, using the median home value and 2 others. And we are similar again to the city of Beacon tax increases. Next slide, please. And lastly, Wappingers, and their median home value is a little bit lower than the other 2 municipalities. But again, the yearly tax increase is pretty consistent overall and the monthly. And then the next slide, please, would be our last Wappingers with an assumed 5% increase. So this presentation is actually on our website. So if anyone had any questions or wanted to go back to this at any point, they can do that to kind of see where they fall into these values. Next slide, please. We also found it really important to look at a comparison. So we use the median home value of 304,700 as an example. That was last year's median home value. So what we estimated the school tax estimate would be $3,127. And I showed you the chart about how our tax rate was one of the lower in the county. So we compared ourselves. We said, if you had that same house in Wappinger, Spack-and-Kill, Arlington, and Hyde Park, how much taxes would you pay? And so we actually did the calculation based on that. And we found that our median home value pays less school taxes than our neighbors. So I thought it was a really good visual for people to understand that, you know, we offer really great things in the city, in the Beacon City School District, but our taxes are on the lower side in comparison to our neighboring districts. Next slide, please. We have also on the ballot on May 20th, besides asking you to vote for the budget, we have 3 candidates running unopposed. There's 3 open seats: Meredith Ewer, Catherine Buscemi, and Semra Urson. So that would be the other thing we would ask you to vote for on May 20th. Next slide, please.
So just next steps, really briefly. So in terms of community outreach, I attended a series of PTO meetings before spring break to talk about the budget. Actually, a lot of our budget planning started when we did the community survey back last fall. We really tried to, you know, we put a lot of focus in this budget on like professional development and mental health based on the survey. We are doing an in-person conversation. I'm going to confirm the time. I think it's going to be 5 o'clock on Monday we try to do one in a site that's not in a school. So it'll be at the Beacon Parks and Rec building, but I'll put something out just to confirm that time. That would be on Monday. We've already done a bunch of other things. We want to do the webinar tonight. We are recording this, so we'll put it on, you know, I'll share the link when it's ready, and we'll put it on the website as well. And then, of course, we have the vote on the 20th. The Beacon High School is the voting site for City of Beacon residents, and then the Glenham Elementary is the voting site for Town of Fishkill and Town of Wappingers residents, and the voting is 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this is the last slide, right?
Yes.
So just, you know, a quick closing statement. First, I want to thank Mike Adamchak. He's been covering our technology department. He's helping us out tonight with our presentation. And then huge thanks to Anne Marie Corderoni for coming up with like all of this valuable information for the presentation tonight. I really am appreciative. And then lastly, just a brief closing statement on the budget. Many folks know I'm also a parent in the district here. My son is now a 7th grader at Roundabout, and I really believe in this district and this community, and we've all put a lot of thought into this budget. And so that's why we've been trying to talk about it so much and share information as much as we've been doing. So I always put out there, if you have any questions at all, please just reach out. If you want to ask a question right now, you can type it into that Q&A and submit it, and we'll do our best to answer it. And so we'll hang around for a minute to check on that. But other than that, thank you so much for being here tonight. And like I said, this is recorded. We'll share the link. But it's been really nice to talk about the budget. And obviously, if you've been with us this whole presentation, there's some other things we're going to be updating folks about as this spring and summer go on, like the phone, the bell-to-bell phone restriction from the state, and like the capital projects and all that kind of stuff. So anyone have a question? It doesn't look like it. So I'll just say thank you so much for being here. And I'm over at the high school. So in a few minutes, the Forrestal Spring Concert is tonight. So I'm going to enjoy that. Roundabouts was last night. We have a lot of spring concerts next week as well. And the high school spring concert is on the night of the budget vote. It's on the 20th. And I always tell people, like, no matter where your child is in school, if you're interested, check out the high school concert that night. There's a lot of talented students you can see at all levels, but that's a fun one to see if your kids are younger. It kind of shows where they're headed. So anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks, Anne Marie and Mike. And just reach out to us via email if you have any questions. Thank you.